seconds to put your question.
Minister, the issue of direct provision is, once again, as it occasionally is, in the public eye. And I suppose I take this opportunity to condemn entirely the fire, the quite disgraceful fire, the act of arson that took place in Moville. Having said all that, I suppose while it is in the public domain and while it is being discussed, it is my view that direct provision is a model which is deeply flawed, which is broken, which effectively warehouses those seeking asylum in this country for prolonged periods of time. I believe it is neither sustainable, efficient, affordable nor humane, and I believe it is time that the government moves beyond that model, ends the direct provision model and finds a new model, and I'm happy to, and I will elaborate on that, to engage on that basis.
Thanks very much. Just to answer the question put down, since 2015 this government has transformed the system which is known as direct provision, and will continue with this programme of reform into the future. At a time of serious pressure in the accommodation market, it is important to note that any person who presents himself or herself and who is seeking international protection will immediately be offered shelter and a range of supports. Since Ireland opted into the EU's recast Reception Conditions Directive, this has all been placed on statutory footing, ensuring that these services are provided as a right. The improvements to living conditions for applicants for international protection have been significant over recent years. These include the implementation of self- or communal catering arrangements in a number of accommodation centres. As a result of this initiative, over 1,500 residents in 5 centres have now moved to the independent living model. In parallel with the delivery of these changes, a number of other accommodation centres are providing self-catering facilities with fresh food provided by either the contractor or the resident themselves. In total, over 2,900 residents in the centres are no longer under the direct provision model as originally set up, and further progress will be made in this area. In addition, there have been significant improvements to recreation opportunities, such as the provision of outdoor sports pitches, including all-weather facilities, as well as the introduction of teenagers' rooms in centres to provide social groups for this age group. Friends of the centre groups have also been established in each centre. This initiative aims to bring residents, community and voluntary groups together with a view to increasing integration opportunities and providing for the development of greater community linkages with the residents and the centre. Following the McMahon report, a Standards Advisory Group was set up in 2017. The work of this group is to build on the recommendations of that report and to develop a set of standards for accommodation provided for those people seeking the protection of the state. The standards will meet the standards set out in the recast Reception Conditions Directive and the European Asylum Support Office guidance on reception conditions. Operational standards and indicators will also take into account of national developments in the provision of services to those in the protection process. They will take due cognizance of the responsibility to promote equality, prevent discrimination and protect the human rights of employees, customers, service users and everybody affected by policies and plans as defined by the Public Sector Equality and Human Rights Duty. A working document is recently issued for widespread consultation.
Yeah, we'll have an opportunity. Thank you, Minister. Deputy.
Minister, while I acknowledge, I suppose, particularly issues such as movement on the right to work, albeit I would have a view that that's not entirely perfect either, there are still very significant issues, and there's very significant issues. But I would ask you to also consider not only is direct provision, which is a model that has been criticised roundly by NGOs, by the public at large, I would believe at this point, as far from being fit for purpose, particularly for families, a location in which I would be concerned that in future years we will hear many stories about and we will look back upon with great regret. But I also think we also need to confront the fact that it's very bad value for money. This, what I would believe to be substandard in inhumane accommodation, has cost the taxpayer £1.25 billion since 2001. To cost for a parent with 2 children, that costs the state £40,000 a year in direct provision. Would it not be not only far preferable from a human rights point of view to have those seeking asylum, to have them located in directly provided accommodation, not by contract through the private sector, through an association, perhaps with non-profit housing associations, in own-door accommodation rather than dormitory-style accommodation, and then encourage people, as they are able to seek their own accommodation and provide them with the means to do so.
Can I just say, this is totally unacceptable that you continue to breach the rules as laid down by you, the members. And if you do that, and I'm not specifically getting at you, it's happening all of the time is wasted, and other people who wait to have their questions answered don't have them answered. So I'm asking every side to adhere to the times. Minister, you have 1 minute.
Thanks very much. I've previously indicated that Ireland, unlike most other European countries, has no NGO-run centre. And I take the opportunity again to reiterate to civil society, including approved housing bodies and others, that I would welcome an expression of interest from them to offer to provide any reception and housing facilities. There's no blockage there. My officials have begun to explore with civil society what might be possible in this regard. And could I also, and I know the Deputy is aware of this, that there was a value for money and policy review carried out in May 2010 on the whole issue of reception, integration agency and accommodation programmes, and it was found that it provides the best value for money. At that time. It was really comprehensive, and I'd invite the Deputy, if he hasn't read it, to read it, and maybe to come back to me with his views on it. It found that the options would be significant, other options more expensive than direct provision, and concluded that using direct provision has proven to be the current choice in providing for the accommodation needs of asylum seekers. And that was carried out in 2010. And a state-building programme, it should be noted that over the longer term, asylum seekers, the numbers have varied widely, from as few as 1,200,000 in the 2000s to 1,500 in other years. So, thus, any system of accommodation must be flexible to cater for wide variations in demand.
Deputy, 1 minute.
I would say that in the long run, I think that would, I suppose, change substantially, because the property or the asset would be permanent rather than something that's constantly renewed and paid for. And I do believe the tendering process, such as it is currently, doesn't particularly suit that kind of process. I think the state should go directly and seek to permanently put accommodation options with NGOs, with housing associations on the table. I also want to raise just the issue. I think it's fair to say that communities that have been identified for locations for direct provision centres have been very welcoming, and I think that that's very positive. But can I identify some of the challenges that the residents of these direct provisions face? For example, Moville, it is 10 hours, even travelling through the 6 counties, which is not probably proper or allowable, 10 hours to get down to Dublin. Kenmare is probably an overnight trip. Lisdoonvarna is possible in 1 day, maybe a very short period of time in Dublin. Mount Trenchard doesn't even have public bus access. So, like, people need to be in Dublin for interviews, for appeal hearings, for renewals of certificates. Minister, it's not an acceptable situation. I think, as much as possible, some of this should be brought to the direct provision centres, but the department should also directly provide transport for the residents.
Final comment.
Yeah, we are very much aware, Cahill, of the issue with regard to transport to Dublin. And with that in mind, my department has agreed with the contractor to arrange overnight accommodation and comfort breaks for those travelling to Dublin at the accommodation centre in Sligo. We will also source overnight accommodation in Dublin if required. And I've also requested the department to examine the logistical and resource implications if such business could be carried out at the remote centres. So rather than the asylum seekers having to travel to Dublin, we get the officials to travel to the centres to cut out that. So the Deputy is right in that regard. I also want to agree and join with the Deputy in condemning, in the strongest possible terms, the recent arson attack in Moville. There is no place in civil society for that type of behaviour, and it does not represent, as the Deputy has said quite rightly, the views of the vast majority of decent people who recognise the need to offer assistance and support to those seeking international protection. And again, could I draw the attention of the Deputy to the report, a value for money report, which did actually examine the direct build system that he spoke about, and it did find that it wasn't actually up to speed with respect to value for money and so on. So that was quite a comprehensive, impressive report carried out in 2010 on value for money and policy review asylum seeker accommodation programme for the RIA. Thank you.